Hey, you all. I came through today with a quick word from God. God is trying to let somebody know right now that you can't fight against the changes that He are bringing forth in your life. You can't fight to make the people stay in your life who God is saying, it's over, it's done. You have to let go. God sees something. God knows that these people who are around you are secretly plotting against you to see you fail, to bring you to destruction, to kill the very gift that God Himself has placed inside of you. It's time to let go. It's time for Absalom to be on his way. And when God defeats him and sends them on their way, or however He chooses to deal with them, let it be done. Because once He makes that change, these things and these people become your lot. You cannot turn back to it. Let it go. Let them go. David had to learn this lesson at a harsh level because he did not want his son Absalom to die. But he had not realized that what God had called him to was a greater glory. And he was not going to allow David to not be able to walk in and to step into his purpose, his whole being. David was in so much hurt and in so much anger at the hearing of his son dying. He was willing to throw in the towel and to die himself. He spoke, why couldn't I die so my son could live? If his son had not died, Absalom would have been chasing him down every day until he had defeated his father. When God has a purpose on your life, when God has a calling on your life, when you are anointed to do something, the enemy will use even your children, your family, your friends, those closest to you, the ones you trust, the ones you believe will never do such a thing to hurt you and to tear you down. The enemy will send them in like troops coming in quickly to try to tear you down, to break you down, to throw you off path. But God said it's time for them to go. Don't hold on to them anymore. Let the purging begin. Let the pruning begin. It hurts. You're weary. You're tired. You're feeling faint. But it is time for the change that God has ordered your steps to be brought to pass. You can't stop it. Your mouth can't stop it because what God has spoken towards it, His word, we all know, does not return to Him until it is done. David, before the troops went out to bring back his son, he spoke to them and he told them, bring my son back to me in one piece. I want my son to live at all costs, knowing that if Absalom would have lived, David would have not had a single day of rest. Solomon probably would have never made it to what God had purposed for him to do, because his whole life, Solomon would have been going down the same line David went down. David couldn't rest like the way God had ordered him to and wanted him to because Saul was chasing him down, trying to kill him, so he could not step foot into what God had ordained for him. So Saul became jealous at the hearing of the anointing. There are some people in your midst who have become jealous at the hearing of what God is going to do for you. There are people in your midst that don't believe that God has ordered your footsteps. They don't want to see you prosper. They don't want to see you rise to the greater that God has called your footsteps to. Some of you all, I can see it, I can feel it spiritually. When the ripping apart begins, you will weep, you will hurt, but continue to tell yourself it's for the greater glory. There is greater glory. There is greater purpose in me that shall come forth. It has to come forth. Nothing standing against it can stop it from coming forth. We have to rise to higher heights. We have to walk in the greater glory. We have purposes that God is issuing out to his people right now. And he will not let anything stop it from coming to pass. You love them like David loved Absalom. He wanted his son to live. The one thing that wanted to kill him. When God defeats your enemies, there is always some more that are going to rise up against you. Rather if it be by something that you did, like for David, for instance. We all know how David's sin had come to pass. It was because of what he did with Bathsheba. And not only did he sin with sleeping with her, he goes and killed her husband because he could not live without Bathsheba. He wanted her just that bad. So God's mouth opened up against him, and he told him through the prophet Nathan, this is what the Lord says: because of what you have done, I will cause your own household to rebel against you. I will give your wives to another man before your very eyes, and he will go to bed with them in public view. You did it secretly, but I will make this happen to you openly in the sight of all Israel. Who did that? Absalom. Absalom went to bed with his father's concubines. All of this because of the sin that David committed against God, when God would have given him anything. All he had to do but ask. But was to ask, and it would have been done to him. It would have been good for him. But in secret, he committed this sin. David said in verse 33, it says, the king was overcome with emotion. He went up to the room over the gateway and burst into tears. And he went, as he went, he cried, oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if I had died instead of you. Well, I got news for you. God had already told David through prophet Nathan that he was not going to die. He told him that in verse 13. He said, yes, but the Lord has forgiven you, and you won't die for this sin. But the sin still had to be purged out. So not only did God unravel what his mouth spoke that would come forth in David's household, he also took that child, because that child, even though his father was anointed, he was a part of the sin that was in secret. And so he had to go. Just like the people in secret that's trying to secretly smile in your face like they your friends. Secretly, they all in your face like they care about you. But no, not everybody who's in your life is there to support you. They're there to tear you down because they know. The enemy knows before you know sometimes. who you are. Before you even discover, he knows who you are. He's already assigned people to come into your life and to stop you from discovering that. But I tell you now that you know who you are. You will walk into it. The enemy can't stop what God has predestined for you. So get ready. People are getting ready to die off because God refuses any longer to allow you not to be a walk into what he has called you to. You can't stop it. You can run up behind them all you want. You can't stop it. Let them go. And when they go, do not return. Do not go looking for them. At all costs, push forward into the greater glory. What's coming? It's not like anything you've ever seen. That's why we cannot afford to miss what God is bringing in. We have to be alert. We have to be awake. We can't miss it because it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And I was supposed to read it's 2 Samuel. I've already discussed it, but I'm going to go ahead and read it to you all. 2 Samuel chapter 18, verses 24 through 33. It says, while David was sitting between the inner and outer gates of the town, the watchman climbed to the roof of the gateway by the wall. As he looked, he saw a lone man running toward them. He shouted the news down to David, and the king replied, if he is alone, he has news. As the messenger came closer, the watchman saw another man running toward them. He shouted, here comes another one. The king replied, he also will have news. The first man runs like Ahimaaz, son of Zadok. The watchman said, he is a good man and comes with good news. The king replied. Then Ahimaaz cried out to the king, everything is all right. He bestowed before the king with his face to the ground. He bowed before the king with his face to the ground and said, praise to the Lord your God, who has handed over the rebels who dared to stand against my lord the king. You will be saying, praise be to God, who has torn down the enemies that have tried to destroy your purpose. Because what they are doing in the darkness, just like the secret thing that David did in the darkness that God brought to the light, you getting ready to find out who is against you. It will not be hidden. It will not be hidden. You will know who has been trying to plot your downfall, who has been trying to bring destruction in what God has said is yours. He's bestowed it upon you. You are anointed for this. You're going to walk in it. You will walk in it. And so Ahimaaz replied, when Joab told me to come, there was a lot of commotion, but I didn't know what was happening. Wait here, the king told him. So Ahimaaz stepped aside. Then the man from Ethiopia arrived and said, I have good news for my lord, the king. Today, the Lord has rescued you from all who rebelled against you. What about young Absalom, the king? Is he all right? And the Ethiopian replied, may all your enemies, my lord the king, both now and in the future share the fate of that young man. The king was overcome with emotion because it was his son. You will be overcome with emotion when God reveals to you who it is, because it's always the person that's closest to you. And some of you all know that people don't mean you no good, that the people in your lives don't mean you no good, but your heart is so big and so loving. You hate to see the evilness in people, so you try to push it aside, but you know good and well these people don't mean you no good. And I'm here to tell you, God has greater glory in you. They gotta go. You need but just stand still. The Lord gonna take care of it. So I'm not gonna hold you all any much longer. I pray that this word has blessed somebody. And I'll see you all next time.